Well, here we are, 400 meters below sea level at the Dead Sea, the lowest place on Earth. Let's now try and raise our hopes. In this world debate, let's think the unthinkable across this tormented region. Iraq, Iran, Jordan, Syria, so many countries, and moving on to Israel, Lebanon, and of course Egypt. 23 nations in this region, all of whom are looking for a new optimism, especially the young, 200 million who are now under 24. The two-thirds who simply look for jobs and can't find them. What's the future for them? What's the unthinkable potential now for jobs growth, for economic growth, for so much to change in this region in ways which is happening in other developing countries? It takes some imagining. Some may think it's unthinkable, but let's think the unthinkable. And I'm joined by leading political figures, business figures, and many from across the region who are prepared to join this spirit of brainstorming. Let's unbutton ourselves. Where is the optimism? I want some ideas, please, positive ideas of where this is going to come from.
The positive trends that I see are that there is more leniency in what can and cannot be said.
Right, please.
Growing acknowledgement of the need for political and economic reforms. The status quo is untenable.
I don't see optimism comes from political leaders at all. I see optimism comes from the people themselves, the people who suffer. And I can feel the will and the power that the people have now to end the suffering that they live.
Education is the key to everything, to reform, to industrial growth, to business, to partnership between private and public enterprises, all of that.
Well, I think I've managed to unbutton you, so much so that I'm actually going to take my coat off. And I hope a lot of you will do the same and come back behind to this area where we're going to divide you up into different areas on the political side, pluralism and participation, democracy, for example, employment and the job crisis, fundamental to this region. And on the political side, civil society and human rights. On the social side, women in the Middle East, fundamental again because of what's been identified by so many reports up to now. Education, skills and training, and finally, employment and the jobs crisis. Okay, let's get to work. If you could brainstorm, we'll capture what you've done after about 25 minutes.
That's the big problem. I experience myself that very often the government is far ahead in terms of ideas, of doing things, but simply the human infrastructure, so to speak, is not following up. I mean, either they don't have the knowledge, the skills, or simply they don't understand, or simply they are defending their own their own things.
I'd like to encourage everybody to give us very concrete bullet points that we can challenge ourselves and our minds.
There is the lack of opportunities that can act as alternatives for those youth so that they will not go to violence or to whatever, extremist views or whatever.
It has to be institutionalized in some way. This is a very young area, so a certain percentage of youth must be in the institutions of power in this region.
We must come from within and draw up our own systems that meet our needs for all of these things. And that can only come from an engagement between the citizen and the government. It cannot be done imposed from the top.
Going into a sharing module, so we've all been looking at one slice of the political aspects. Now, the other team here has also been looking at another slice, and the team over the back there have been looking at a different slice. So we're going into what we call share. So what I want you to do is actually be upstanding. We're going to move around to this group here and listen to the work that they've been doing. 5 minutes per team, very, very quick fire. You want to be checking that you're going in the same direction as they are and that they're going in the same direction as you are.
Shouldn't look at the Middle East as one region and say that there's one lack of transparency across the region, that there are many different good things going on in the region, and that we have to be able to look at those and say, well, in the UAE this is happening, in Kuwait this is happening, in the Saudis certain things are happening, which are positives.
Go to Europe, go to Asia, go to wherever. This, what is happening in this region, is impacting the rest of the world. The rest of the world is impacting us. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street.
All right, let's examine that impact. You've done 2 so far. Can you now go to the third wall and do a summary of civil society and human rights, please? Thank you.
Jerusalem is the capital for both peoples, but the entire Jerusalem becomes the seat of the UN.
Capital of
Of the Palestinian state.
Just to complete the sentence.
Right, what we're seeing here is almost an impatience to hear what everyone else has been saying in the hour and a half they've been gathered. A remarkable exchange of information and ideas, and a richness which now we want to capture to the other side of the wall. First of all, thank you very much indeed for staying the course. You've come up with some remarkable ideas in a much shorter time than we expected. Can I just ask you for your impressions on what kind of experience this has been, given the challenges that you've agreed to be involved in the last hour and a half? Anyone, any thoughts?
I think it's really interesting to see from the various groups there is some common themes that come out, and it'd be very good to encapsulate these common themes, because it's interesting from the various economic, political, and social groups that have discussed many of the issues, there are actually some underlying common themes that come out as solutions.
I think it gave everybody a chance to dream a little, and then also to think about the steps that you could
pragmatic
take,
dreaming.
and then take the steps about how to actually implement those dreams.
Can the businessmen and government officials fulfill their good suggestions and crazy ideas they came up with here? We thought
Why do you say crazy? Why do you say crazy?
Because actually creativity comes usually from crazy ideas, unusual ideas. I like this. Thinking outside the box is the only way to jump outside the box.
Can I thank you all for the intensity of your discussion and the energy you've put into it. And let me just try and capture for you some of the areas which Alicia, our artist, has been summarizing. Optimism, the glass is half full. Thank you, Alicia. The empowerment of business leaders, best practices, success stories. I can't summarize the whole thing, but I just want to get you a sense of what's being captured from this. But overall, with this extraordinary summary, graphicized anyway, job opportunities, education reform, courage to spend the resources, but there, large and brash, do it now. A sense of urgency, which I think has been reflected in this discussion here at the Dead Sea. From all of us and those who've taken part, thanks for joining us. From me, Nick Gowing, bye-bye.